I opened the office fridge and my lunch was sitting there like nothing happened. Same container, same spot, same lid. But the best part, the part I'd been thinking about since 9 a.m, was gone. Not all of it, just enough to make my brain freeze. You know that feeling when something is off, but it's so small you almost convince yourself you're imagining it. That's what hit me first. My eyes flicked between the food and the lid, like the answer was going to appear if I stared hard enough. My stomach dropped, but my mind tried to stay polite about it. Did I eat some of this already? Did I pack it wrong? Did it spill? Nope, the lid was on. The container was clean. The food was edited. And in that moment, standing there with cold fridge air spilling onto my legs, I realized something that made my skin tighten. Someone had touched my food. Someone had taken it and then put it back like I wouldn't notice. If you've ever had someone treat your stuff like it's communal, your lunch, your time, your effort, go ahead and like and subscribe, because this is one of those stories where the revenge is petty, clean, and way more satisfying than it has any right to be. So, for context, I work in a small office. Nothing dramatic, no glamorous corporate tower, just beige walls, a printer that sounds like it's actively suffering, and a break room that's basically a hallway with a fridge and a single microwave. It's the kind of office where you can't help but learn people's routines. Who refills their water bottle every hour? Who reheats fish and acts surprised when the whole floor smells like a dock? Who always has a little yogurt line up in the fridge like they're organizing a tiny dairy parade? In a space that small, the fridge becomes weirdly personal. It's like this shared, unspoken boundary. We all have our little containers in there, our little plans for the day, and the agreement is simple. Don't touch what isn't yours, except someone was touching what wasn't theirs. The first time it happened, I honestly blamed myself. I brought leftovers, real leftovers. I cook, I season, I take pride in it because it's one of the few things in life I can control. I remember packing it the night before, snapping the lid on, and feeling that little flicker of satisfaction like, good, tomorrow is handled. And then at lunch, I popped the lid and just stared. Half the chicken was missing, not all of it, not even most of it. Just a chunk, a perfect, greedy chunk. It sounds silly when you say it out loud. Someone stole some of my chicken. But it didn't feel silly in the moment. It felt intimate in the worst way, like someone had reached into my day and taken a piece out of it. I remember standing there, fork hovering, heat rising into my face. There was this slow, prickling realization that made my hands go cold. No one does that by accident. This wasn't a mix-up. Nobody thinks, oops, I accidentally ate someone else's lunch and then carefully returned the container. This was deliberate. After that, it kept happening. And the longer it went on, the creepier it got, because it wasn't a full theft. It was selective, calculated. Some days it was the protein. Some days it was the good part. One day it was like the sauce level was lower, which sounds insane, but I know how much sauce I packed. Another day my dessert was suspiciously smaller, but the container was placed back in the fridge so neatly it was almost respectful. Almost. Like they wanted to remain invisible. Like they wanted me to doubt myself. And that's what really got under my skin. Because every time it happened, my first instinct wasn't, someone's stealing. It was, am I losing it? That's a special kind of disrespect. Not just taking something, but taking it in a way that makes you question your own reality. People complained too. It wasn't just me. You'd hear it in the break room in that awkward, joking tone adults use when they're uncomfortable. Oh my God, someone stole my yogurt again. Little laugh, nervous glance around. Guys, seriously, what is going on? But it always stayed surface level, like a quirky office mystery. Like we were all characters in some sitcom episode called The Case of the Missing Leftovers. Management did what management always does. We got the email, the one that makes you want to scream. Reminder, please label your food and be respectful. The refrigerator is a shared space. A shared space, right. Because apparently my lunch was now a tasting menu. I started labeling, big letters. my name, date, sometimes even "please don't eat." It didn't matter. The theft continued. And here's where it started to feel personal. It was always my food that got hit the most. Not my co-workers' plain turkey sandwiches, not the sad salads, not the protein bars. It was my leftovers. The stuff that smelled good when you opened the container, the food that took time. It didn't take a genius to understand why. My cooking was an easy target, and I think the thief knew something else too. I'm not confrontational at work. I'm friendly. I'm the one who says no worries, even when there are worries. I'm the one who doesn't want to cause a scene. So what they were really taking wasn't chicken. They were taking advantage. And it built up in my body in this quiet, ugly way. The tightness in my jaw when I walked into the break room. The little spike of dread every time I reached for my container. The way my shoulders would creep up around my ears when I opened the fridge, like I was bracing for disappointment. I started listening for the fridge door. That little suction sound when it opens. The soft clunk when it closes. I'd hear it from my desk and my brain would immediately go, "Is that them? Are they doing it right now?" That's what it does to you. It makes you suspicious of everyone, people you like, people who have never given you a reason to doubt them. Suddenly you're scanning the office like you're on high alert, and it's exhausting. Then came the day I snapped. It was a Thursday, because of course it was. Thursdays already feel like the universe is daring you to give up. I'd packed something I was genuinely excited about. I remember thinking that morning, at least lunch will be good. At least there's that. I opened the fridge. I saw my container exactly where I left it. For a split second, relief washed over me. And then I opened it. The meat was gone again. Not all of it. Just the best portion. The part I was saving for the first bite. I felt my throat tighten, like my body was trying to swallow my anger before it could escape. My hands went strangely steady, which is how I knew I was done being reasonable. I stared at the food and I could almost see the moment it happened. Someone opening the fridge, someone's eyes flicking across everyone's lunches, someone choosing mine, someone taking what they wanted, someone closing the lid and putting it back like I was too dumb to notice. My face got hot. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. And then, instead of slamming the container or storming out or doing something dramatic, I closed the lid carefully, slowly, like I had all the time in the world. And in my head I said, okay, fine, let's play. Now, I know what people expect in stories like this. They expect laxatives. They expect ghost peppers. They expect some big public humiliation moment that ends with HR and an awkward "we're all a family here" meeting. But I didn't want to hurt anyone, and I didn't want to start a war I'd have to live in 5 days a week. I didn't want nuclear revenge. I wanted effective revenge. I wanted it to stop. So I asked myself the only question that mattered. What does a lunch thief actually want? They don't just want food. If they wanted food, they could pack their own. They could buy something. They could ask. They could do literally anything else like an adult. What they want is convenience. They want an easy win. They want to open a container, take the good part, close it, and walk away without getting noticed. No mess, no effort, no risk. So I decided I wouldn't make my food dangerous. I'd make it annoying. That night after work, I went to a store and bought a set of tiny containers, the kind people use for salad dressing or dipping sauce. They were ridiculously small, like, is this for a hamster? Small. At home, I lined them up on my counter like I was about to run a science experiment. I packed my lunch, but not in one container. Rice went into one tiny container, chicken into another, vegetables into another. Sauce split into 2 separate containers. I kept going until my normal lunch was broken into 6 or 7 little pieces, like a meal dismantled into its components. Then I took painter's tape, the blue kind, the kind that peels clean, and I taped all the little containers together into one solid block, a brick, a weird lumpy lunch brick. It looked so stupid I actually laughed. And that laugh felt amazing, because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't the one feeling powerless. I was creating something. And then I took a marker and wrote very neatly across the top, if you open this, you have to retape it the same way. Not don't steal, not I'm watching you, not touch this and die, just a rule. A tiny, calm rule that carried a bigger message underneath. If you mess with me, you leave evidence. The next morning, I brought my lunch brick into work like it was a secret weapon. I waited until the break room was empty. No witnesses, no curious eyes. I opened the fridge and placed it right in the middle shelf, front and center, not hidden, not pushed to the back. And for a moment, I just stood there looking at it. It felt like leaving a note in a place only one person would understand. Then I closed the fridge and walked back to my desk, acting completely normal while my nerves buzzed under my skin. All morning, every time someone walked toward the break room, my attention snapped to the sound of their footsteps. The fridge door, the microwave beep. The little hum of office life suddenly felt like background music to a heist movie. I kept picturing it. The thief opening the fridge, spotting the brick, reading the message. Would they laugh? Would they get angry? Would they still try? By lunch, I felt like I'd been holding my breath all day. I walked into the break room, trying to look casual, like I wasn't about to learn something important about the people I worked with. I opened the fridge. My lunch brick was there, but the tape was cut, not peeled gently, not carefully removed, cut. And inside the fridge, the tiny containers were scattered like someone had started the process and then panicked halfway through. My eyes scanned them. I checked the lids. I checked the levels. Nothing was taken. Not the chicken, not the rice, not even the sauce. Whoever it was had opened it, realized what a nightmare it would be to steal from, and bailed. They couldn't just grab a forkful and close the lid. They couldn't take just the good part without dealing with a ridiculous number of tiny containers. And they definitely couldn't put it back the way it was without spending time reassembling the brick. Time is risk, and lunch thieves are cowards. I stood there staring at the mess, and this slow satisfaction spread through my chest, warm and steady. My shoulders relaxed without me even thinking about it. Because it worked. Not in a dramatic movie-style way, in the best way, quietly, efficiently, with proof. I gathered the containers calmly, put them back together as best I could, and walked back to my desk. And as I ate, I kept thinking about how the thief had to have stood there, looking at my lunch, and realized I had taken away their favorite thing, the easy win. The office vibe shifted after that, not in an obvious way. Nobody came up to me and said, "Wow, great idea." Nobody held a meeting, but there was a subtle tension, like everyone could sense something had happened. And I loved that because it meant the thief knew the same thing I knew. They'd been challenged. So the next day, I did it again. Fresh meal, fresh tiny containers, fresh tape, same neat little message. I put it in the fridge like I was setting a boundary in physical form. All morning, I listened, I watched, I waited. Lunch came. I walked in, opened the fridge, and there it was. Perfect, untouched, uncut, exactly as I left it. The message still facing forward. I just stood there for a second and let it sink in, because that was the moment. That was the payoff, not a confrontation, not an accusation, just a silent surrender. And over the next week, my food stopped being targeted completely, not less, not occasionally, stopped like a switch flipped. Because the thief wasn't brave, they weren't bold, they weren't even hungry probably, they were lazy. And I made stealing from me require effort. That was all it took. The best part is what happened to me internally. I didn't realize how much this had been eating at my peace until it stopped. I stopped flinching every time I opened the fridge. I stopped doing mental math about what I'd packed. I stopped scanning faces, trying to guess who had taken what. My lunch went back to being what it was supposed to be, a small comfort in the middle of a workday. I never found out who it was. And honestly, I don't need to, because my goal wasn't to publicly shame someone and create office drama that would linger for months. My goal was to reclaim something small but meaningful, respect, a boundary. The feeling that I'm not just here to be taken from, And I did it without hurting anyone, without poisoning anyone, without turning into the villain. Sometimes revenge doesn't need fireworks. Sometimes it's just painter's tape, a handful of tiny containers, and a message that says, "If you mess with me, you're going to have to work for it." If this story hit that justice nerve in your brain, like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. What's the most petty but effective revenge you've ever seen at work? And if you want more Reddit revenge stories where karma shows up in the most satisfying ways, stick around, because the next one gets even better.